David, I was reading your biography.
Impressive, right?
Your biography. In my car. Oh, you can't be impressed with that yourself. How are you? No. I'm gonna run to bed. Maybe I'm just putting the show here. I would not.
As long as we get a good price.
Hey, Mark.
I figured that. So I was looking, just so long.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice to see you again.
Wow.
Another
No,
one.
no, I'm seeing the phone.
Yeah, it's not bad. So, lighting. Yeah.
They don't get like, have them test even, will not show.
So the. This one.
You know what?
And I say to my doctor, when I go for my checkup, I go, take my blood, I never had it, and maybe I just ignore it. Take the blood, I said, no, you never had it. And no, yeah, well, I'm getting the shot, maybe it works.
So then maybe on our backs and the left and this next show, no. Or do you want me to? Oh, very good. Yeah. This sounds yes.
Oh, wow.
I mean, I was very jealous.
Very, very impressive. neighbor who's Japanese, brought up in Sweden, married to a French woman. And she's as flaky as you can get it. The most amazing thing. That's the mother. You know, like, and here's this gal.
And then Indiana was
Yeah.
and then
We're all.
I think that's a good idea.
That might make it an.
And the whole thing.
I'm so happy with that. I hope that.
Your hand gets tired. Yeah, I'm sure you know it's worth it. No. Yeah.
No,
No, you can have it.
Just
But we're just not.
a number of them so that your average will be very upgraded.
No. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I have to remember. Yeah. I have to go over here to the house. I actually have to go with yeah. No. We were doing it so that she wouldn't have stomach. Oh my God. Go ahead. Just do this. I just a little place.
Whatever you say. For those that are with us in the room, we'll explain a little bit as we go, but the large collection of candles here, representing the remaining 101 hostages, is an opportunity, if you'd like, to come up now and to light a candle if you so choose. There's no obligation to do so, but if you'd like. Uh, yeah. Huh? It's okay. Yeah, just you can. No, no. I would. Yeah. Let's. Yeah.
I must say that.
It's it's not you.
working on this side.
Okay. Okay. Shabbat shalom, everyone. To begin our service, in a moment, I'm going to chant the 23rd Psalm, but I found an introduction to this that I wanted to share with you. It comes from our Machzor, which we will be using in just a few weeks. No other psalm, perhaps no other prayer but the Kaddish itself, is as inseparable from our experience of grief and mourning as the 23rd. One phrase, so simple and direct yet emotionally profound, has made it so. Ki ata imadi, for you are with me. Or in the language of an earlier age, for thou art with me. To arrive at those words after passing through, quote, the valley of the shadow of death is to know, in the words of Rabbi Joshua Loth Liebman, that God contains and supports us as a mighty ocean contains and supports the infinitesimal drops of every wave. To arrive at those words is to feel at home in the cosmos, held and comforted, cared for and serene. The 23rd Psalm does not make promises that cannot be kept. The end of all evil, the eradication of suffering and pain, sunshine and shed of shadows. It makes but one promise, only this: you are not alone. Mizmor leDavid, Adonai roi lo echsar, Bihinot nesheyar bitzeni, al mei menuchot yanaleni. Nafshi eshovev, Nafshi eshovev, Yanachini b'maglei tzedek, leman shemo. Kam ki elech begeit al mavet, lo hiraram, ki ata imadi, shiftecha umishantecha, Shiftecha umishantecha, Hema yenachamuni, Taroch lefanai shulchan, Taroch lefanai shulchan, Taroch lefanai shulchan, neged zorerai, Dishanta Bashemen Roshi. Dishanta Bashemen Roshi. Dishanta Bashemen Roshi. Kosir Hevaya. Achtov achesed, irdefuni, kol yemei chayai, ושבתי בבית אדוני, ושבתי בבית אדוני, לאורך ימים. Adonai is my shepherd, I shall not want. God makes me lie down in green pastures, lead me beside still waters, and restores my soul. You lead me in right paths for the sake of your name, and even when I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You have set a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You have anointed my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of the life, and I shall dwell in the house of God forever. In the many things that you are not taught in rabbinical school, this is one of those moments. There is no paradigm, there's no example, there's just us doing our best. And a service like this, truthfully, is probably best served by silence, feeling like anything that we even try to articulate can't come close to expressing the communal sense of loss, the communal sense of grief, but much more importantly, the specific loss, the specific grief, the individual people, their individual families, what all of us are going through together and what all of us are going through alone. It's a service that was pulled together in, I'd say, less than 48 hours, and with some really wonderful friends and partners in our temple leadership. And I want to acknowledge our Israel Response Committee in particular, Rabbi Alan Levin and Gail Gambino, Nicole Gruenstein, and of course, Benzi Tepper is watching at home. Knowing that this was a service that, while technically speaking, I could do on my own, I couldn't do on my own. So first and foremost, I'm grateful that you will hear from a few of us tonight, and that whatever we have attempted to construct in this space, as I said, will almost by definition feel lacking in ways, but we hope even in one way that it helps you through your grief, through your sense of loss, and all of us together in this unbelievably painful moment that we find ourselves in amongst a year of already tremendous pain. We attempted in this service to use what actually our tradition tells us is oftentimes our most powerful outlet when we feel like we don't have the words ourselves. We rely on structures, we rely on systems, we rely on practices that our people have used for generations. So some of this service is pulled from the services of Yif's Core that happen throughout the year, and of course, upcoming as we approach Yom Kippur. Some from a more recent holiday of Tisha B'Av, some from simply funerals, from moments of personal loss. We also have chosen to emphasize symbols, and as you'll notice, a number of those symbols sit before you tonight in ways that are unusual for us here. Something like the Seder plate, the idea is to draw your attention, to ask questions, to wonder why. Those answers will come as the service unfolds. And also, and I think perhaps most powerfully in a bit, to hear words from Israel, to hear words from those directly affected, those that are read on their behalf, but to make sure that each one of us hears, again, the very personal, very, very real, very direct kind of pain that especially the families of the 6 hostages who were killed are suffering in ways that, again, none of us can really, truly comprehend. So I want to thank all of you, first and foremost, for just being here, being present, and those that are watching at home as well. There are times, again, where the rabbi is the leader, and there are many times where the rabbi needs to be a part of the community as much as anybody else. So I'm grateful to have this opportunity to be with all of you and to share the bima again with some wonderfully trusted friends. Before I hand off to Rabbi Alan Levin, who's going to help in just a moment to explain some of the symbolic elements in front of us this evening, I want to just share one additional piece that was written by Rabbi Barry Schwartz that's called I Have No Words. Words fail. We stand and shake in silence. Words fail and we stand in despairing tears. And then because we are human, and because we love life, we try to summon words. Maybe it's the somber verse of the Haggadah that rings truest. Ele shebechol dor vador omdim aleinu lechalotenu. But in every generation they rise against us to destroy us. In our great-grandparents' generation, they rose up to slaughter us in pogroms, but the people of Israel live. In our grandparents' generation, they rose up to slaughter us in the Holocaust, but the people of Israel live. In our parents' generation, they rose up to slaughter us in the War of Independence and the Yom Kippur War, but the people of Israel live. In our generation, they rise up to slaughter us on the borders, but the people of Israel live. We live as we count the dead and mourn the dead. We live as we tend to the wounded, pray for the wounded. We live as we fight on for the captives and redeem the captives. We live as we cry out for justice. We live as we pray for the soldiers. We live as we comfort the afflicted. With a broken heart and a clenched fist, all I can manage to choke out, Am Yisrael Chai, the people of Israel live. It's now my privilege to welcome up Rabbi Levin to share some words.
Shabbat Shalom. Candles play an important role in Jewish tradition, symbolizing by their light the divine light or spirit. They're used to mark sacred time, as they'll soon do tonight in this sanctuary to inaugurate Shabbat. They serve as symbols of an important transitional moments in a person's life. In ancient times, candles were lit at a brit, a bris, marking the entrance of a new Jewish soul into the community. They can represent hope, hope for redemption, as they do this evening for the 101 lights in our sanctuary, one for each of the captives who are still held hostage in Gaza. And they symbolize the soul, marking the passing of a soul from life in the traditional use of yahrzeit candles, like the 6 candles on the bima tonight that we will soon light, one for each of the most recent victims of Hamas.
As we stare at these 101 candles and we remember the representation of real and actual human beings still held in captivity, I offer this prayer for the redemption of the captives, written by Rabbi Ofer Sabat Beit Halachmi. Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu, our God, the one who raised Joseph up from the pit, be a refuge for the oppressed, a refuge in time of trouble. Send complete rescue and full redemption to all those held captive by the enemy. Strengthen their spirit and bring them our prayers that they be protected from all harm. Implant understanding in the heart of the enemy that they may return the captives in wholeness of body and spirit. Grant wisdom to the Israel Defense Forces that they may secure freedom for the captives without loss of life. Grant strength of spirit and courage of heart to all the sons and daughters of Abraham, Sarah, and Hagar to release bonds of captivity and allow us all to live in freedom. They shall call upon me and I will answer them. I will be with them in distress. I will rescue them and honor them. And together we say, invite Rabbi Alan back up.
Keynote are liturgical poetry that are typically chanted during Tisha B'Av, a summertime holiday that commemorates the destruction of the first and the second temples in Jerusalem. The destruction of these temples shattered the Israelite people of the time and forever changed the psyche of the Jewish nation. Eicha, the Book of Lamentations, is read on that day, a day that has become a symbol of the many tragedies that have befallen the Jewish people over the last 20 centuries. On October 7th, on the holiday of Simchat Torah, our people experienced a 21st century version of Tisha B'Av. The Hamas attacks that day and the murder of nearly 1,200 people forever changed the psyche of the Jewish people of our generation. Indeed, it will be hard to hold to the mitzvah of Simchat Torah this autumn as Ziman Simchatenu, the time of our rejoicing. Several modern poets wrote new keynote or elegies for Tisha B'Av this summer, commemorating the tragic events of October 7th. Tonight, I'd like to read you one of them, written by Nurit Hirschfeld Skupinski, a survivor of the slaughter in kibbutz Nahal Oz. That kibbutz is located near the Gaza border, and on October 7th, Hamas terrorists entered the kibbutz, killing 61 soldiers and 12 residents. A family of 5 was taken hostage, with Hamas live streaming the kidnapping. Arson and vandalism destroyed much of the kibbutz. This elegy is called "Oh, How She Sat Alone," a lamentation, and it draws on verses from Echa, the Book of Lamentations, for some of its inspiration. Echa yoshva badad, nir oz rabati dam. Sderot hayta ke'almana, kirya haluma umi ne'emana. Oh, how she sat alone, near Oz, full of blood. Sderot was like a widow, a city stunned, and who is faithful to her. Oh, how they sat alone in the shelter room, one family and another, and another, and another. Oh, how they sat alone, the many-eyed women at the observation posts, and there was no listening and deliverance, none. Oh, how they sat alone, young women and young men, hiding in pits and shrubs, their dancing halted, and who will rescue them? Oh, how they sat alone, captive women and captive men, and sitting there still, 101 men, women, elders, and children, crying. They are crying at night, tears on their cheeks, and there is no one who comforts. Echa yashvu badad, חטופות וחטופים, ועדיין יושבים. 101 גיבורים, נשים כ60 וילדים. בכו בוכים בלילה, דמעות על החייכם, ואין מנחם.
My privilege to invite up board member Gail Gambino, and in a moment, board member Nicole Gruenstein. Yeah, okay. Come.
Thank you all for joining us this evening for this special and difficult moment. At the least, together, we must gather the courage, morality, and grace to stand with those who have given and continue to give far more. Together, we find that comfort and that courage. All of us came to know a mother named Rachel Goldberg Poland, who with indefatigable strength, charisma, charm, hope, appeal, and emotional power, became the voice, the presence, the heart, and the soul of this horrible ordeal since October 7th. We came to count on, look forward to, and become deeply attached to this remarkable woman. Her warmth, her strength, her clarity. In the midst of her own terror and uncertainty, she became our mascot of humanity, a personal connection to her, our struggle to find love, hope, and a wish not to be alone at this horrific time. She became the beautiful face and voice that sometimes made this ordeal more bearable. Within the lovely circle of her strong and supportive marriage, she could literally lean into him and on him, and he welcomed her comfort in speaking. The strength of their marriage helped her to spring forward, to articulate her wishes, fears, frustrations, and inner light. And as life would have it, we had to endure the agony of this terrible moment with her. As she turned to her husband for added strength, what a model of light, love, and human richness they have shared so generously with us. As much as their beloved son Hirsch, we honor Rachel for the endurance, strength, substance, and love she has shared with us. My dear friend and colleague, Nicole Gruenstein, and I will now read Rachel's eulogy for Hirsch in honor of her soul and the soul of the son she so loved. Please experience Nicole and I now as one heart, one voice, speaking Rachel's words in the various inner voices she so eloquently expressed. Try to experience us as one. I have had a lot of time during these past 332 days, to think about my sweet boy, my Hirsch. And one thing I keep thinking about is how, out of all the mothers in the world, God chose to give Hirsch to me. What must I have done in a past life to deserve such a beautiful gift? It must have been glorious. Hirsch and I watched some documentaries a couple of years ago together about young people who had died. And he said to me, "How come everyone who dies young is always said to be the funniest, the smartest, the greatest, the handsomest? Why doesn't anyone ever say, 'I liked Max, but you know what? He was pretty stupid. His sense of humor was off and he had bad breath'?" I am honest, and I say it is not that Hirsch was perfect, but he was the perfect son for me. And I am so grateful to God, and I want to do Hakarat Hatov and thank God right now for giving me this magnificent present of my Hirsch. For 23 years, I was privileged to have this most stunning treasure, to be Hirsch's mama. I'll take it and say thank you. I just wish it had been for longer. Hirsch, for all these months I have been in such torment, worrying about you every millisecond of every day. It was such a specific type of misery that I have never experienced before. I tried hard to suppress the missing you part, because that I was convinced would break me. So I spent 330 days terrified scared, worrying, and frightened. It closed my throat and made my soul throb with third-degree burns. Part of what is so deeply crushing and confusing for us is that a strange thing happened along this macabre path upon which our family found itself traveling for the past 332 days. Amidst the inexplicable agony, terror, anguish, depression, desperation, and fear, we became absolutely certain that you were coming home to us alive. But it was not to be. Now I no longer have to worry about you. I know you are no longer in danger. You are with beautiful Honor. He will show you around. You will hopefully meet my grandparents, who will adore you, and start to play chess with Papa Stan. But now my worry shifts to us, Dada, Libby, Orly, and me. How do we do the rest of this life without you? I also pray that your death will be a turning point in this horrible situation in which we are all entangled. I take such comfort knowing you were with Carmel, Ori, Eden, Almag, and Alex. From what I have been told, they each were delightful in different ways, and I think that is how the 6 of you managed to stay alive in unimaginable circumstances for so long. You each did every single thing right to survive 329 days in what I can only call hell. I send each of the families my deepest sympathies for what we are all going through and for the sickening feeling that we all could not save them. I think we all did every single thing we could. I hope that perhaps a deal was near. It was so authentic, it felt crunchy, it tasted close, but it was not to be. Those beautiful 6 survived, and those beautiful 6 died together. And now they will be remembered together forever.
Hirsch, like most parents, Dada and I would often talk about who you would become, what you would be like when you grew up, what you would do, what you would look like, and what kind of parent you would be. But now you will forever be our beautiful boy. You will stay energetic, kind, patient, curious, funny, irreverent, pensive. Forever handsome, forever young, forever my sweet boy. You squeezed into your young life a lot of experiences, and that gives me relief and comfort. You made true, deep friendships. You traveled each summer and started to explore the world. You worked, you learned, you read, you taught, you served, you listened. You even fell in love and had a deep, true relationship for more than 2 years. And you shared the excitement of that new experience with us. You charmed everyone you ever talked to, old or young. You promoted justice and peace in a way only a young, pure, wide-eyed idealist can. You never raised your voice to me in your life. You treated me respectfully always, even when you chose a different path. When you wrote to us from the bomb shelter, you had just seen Honor get killed. You had lost your arm, and you thought you were dying. You wrote to us, "I'm sorry," because you knew how crushing it would be for us to lose you. So you fought to stay alive all this time, but now you are gone. At this time, I ask your forgiveness. If I was ever impatient or insensitive during your life or neglectful in some way, I deeply and sincerely request your forgiveness. If there was something we could have done to save you and we didn't think of it, I beg your forgiveness. We tried so very hard, so deeply and desperately. I am sorry. Now, my Hirsch, I ask for your help. As we transform our hope into grief and this new unknown brand of pain, I beg of you, please do what you can to have your light shine down on me, Dada, Libby, and Orly. Help shower us with healing and resilience. Help us to rise again. I know it will take a long time, but please, may God bless us that one day, one fine day, Dada, Libby, Orly, and I will hear laughter, and we will turn around and see that it is us, that we are okay. You will always be with us as a force of love and vitality. You will become our superpower. Okay, sweet boy, go now on your journey. I hope it's as good as the trips you dreamed about. Because finally, my sweet boy, finally, you are free. I will love you and I will miss you every single day for the rest of my life. But you are right here. I know you are right here. I just have to teach myself to feel you in a new way. And Hirsch, I need you to do one last thing for us. Now I need you to please help us to stay strong. I need you to help us to survive.
There's a certain section of the Isker service, in particular on Yom Kippur, that originates during some pretty horrible times in our history, in which there is a set-aside moment for beyond the prayers for your own individual loved ones, for those that died al Kiddush Hashem. If you're not familiar with that phrase, it's actually something of a challenging theological concept. Its most common understanding, if there is a translation of it into a single idea in English, is it has to do with people who died essentially as martyrs. That word, however, I think belies what it's really about. Kiddushat Hashem means for the sake of sanctifying God's name. Our tradition, our religion doesn't believe in the idea of giving one's life solely for the idea of aggrandizing God's name. It's principally against it. What it's really about is an acknowledgement that many of the most horrible and horrific things that have happened to our people over time have happened solely because of who they are, what their belief is about, who they believe in, what they identify as. These 6 wonderful people, the many other hundreds, thousands over the years whose lives were taken simply because they were Jews. Kedushat Hashem is not about the martyrdom that we associate with in modern contexts. It's about understanding that when a person is given oftentimes a choice to renounce oneself for the sake of saving their own life, right? Whether that choice is ever really given or it's simply an idea, it's an attachment to the concept that in the deepest part of our souls, our faith, our belief that this thing that we call Judaism, this belief in our God, this idea in our values and our ethics, that these are things of the highest value. And that when a life is taken because of this identification, because of being a Jew, when their life is taken in such horrific fashion, there's really only one thing we can do when we are the remainder, which is to work towards building a world in which the sanctification of God's name is about building the life that these 6 and many others believe is still possible. What you heard in that eulogy, again, is the depth of sadness, and yet also the belief that life will continue on, and that we now have a responsibility of holding up these names in a special way, considering their lives, and especially, in this case, the way in which their lives were taken in distinct and powerful ways. I want to read for you before we start to conclude this part of the service and find our way into Shabbat, a little introduction in our Machzor that introduces this moment in the service. May God remember the souls of those slain for their devotion to you, all who died al Kiddush Hashem, our brothers and sisters in every generation killed because they were Jews, the ones who suffered fire and the ones who suffered water to sanctify your name. May God remember those in our own time killed in acts of hate, acts of terror against the Jewish people, against the Jewish state, and against human beings of every nation. Though holiness was diminished by their deaths, may their memories be turned to good, their legacies a sanctification of your name. Let us honor their memory by word, by deed, by acts of hope and kindness. Let us honor them through the study of history and by working against bigotry and bias. As we cling to their memory, so may God embrace their souls, give them everlasting peace. Together we say. At this point, I would like to invite up, there are 6 individuals who will help to light our 6 yahrzeit candles. If you know who you are, if you would come up now, appreciate that.
From Psalm 6 in memory of Carmel Gat. I groan, am all worn out. I sob on my bed. My tears drench my mattress. My eyes are stinging from frustration, as if all my troubles wept them out. From Psalm 119 in memory of Ori Danino. In my distress, your word was my comfort. It was what gave me the courage to live. Malicious men set snares to trap me, but I did not forget your teachings. How much time do I still have to live? Rid me of those who hound me. From Psalm 34, in memory of Eden Yerushalmi. If you are heartbroken, Yah is nearby. She understands vulnerable spirits. For all the trouble that meets a righteous one, in the end, Yah frees him. From Psalm 119, in memory of Almag Sarusi. Precarious I live, my soul in hand, your teaching I have not forgotten. My tormentors set me traps, from your directions I did not stray. The wicked will not find salvation, they never sought to obey your laws. From Psalm 118, in memory of Alexander Lobanov. Open the gates of righteousness for me, that I may enter and praise God. This is the gate to Adonai. The righteous shall enter through it. And from Deuteronomy, in memory of Hirsch Goldberg Polin, justice, justice you shall pursue, that you may thrive upon the land that the Eternal is giving you. Zichronam livracha, may all of their memories be for a blessing.
So, amongst the many challenges of planning this service is the inherent challenge of the responsibility we have beginning shortly, which is to welcome Shabbat in the way that we are taught to welcome Shabbat, in joy and in celebration. Tonight is not one of those easy nights, and the shift from one place to the other presents many different kinds of challenges. What we're going to do in a moment is we will conclude this service with the Al Malei Rachamim and the memorial prayer, and of course the Mourner's Kaddish as well. When the Mourner's Kaddish finishes, we'll have a few moments of silence for each of us to reflect in our way. And then we will bring in another symbol, a symbol that we more often associate with the joyousness of celebrating a new year, but one that is meant to actually begin much earlier than Rosh Hashanah, hearing the sound of the shofar every day in the month of Elul as we prepare ourselves for our holiest days. And that sound, as we know, is not like any other sound. And I have to apologize in advance because it's going to come from me and my shofar skills are not great. But its idea is that unlike most other things that I've encountered, and I imagine you have as well, it's something about the shofar that gets through everything, goes right to the heart. So when you hear that sound, we hope it will be one that affects you in the deepest possible way. And from that, we will transition into Shalom Aleichem, we'll light our Shabbat candles, and we will begin our Shabbat service. And I know it's a lot to ask to exist in the worlds of sadness and of joy, of Shabbat and of Yizkor. But it is essential that we do that. It is absolutely at the very essence, again, of what we are specifically as this community and who we are as a people. That even while we grieve, even while we feel the immense sense of loss and pain, that Shabbat is not something that we can push aside. That our ancestors, in the toughest moments imaginable, still lit those candles, still sang the songs, still prayed together, still prayed on their own. So I'll ask you now to please rise in body or in spirit as I offer first the El Malei Rachamim. El Malei Rachamim Shochen Bamromim Hametzei Menucha Nechona Tachat Kanfei HaShechina B'mahalot Im Kedoshim Utorim Kezohar Harakia Mazehirim Lenishmat Yakirenu Shalachu Leolamam Began Eden Temenuchata Ahana Bal Harachamim Yastirem Beseter Kanafav Leolamim Vihitzor Bitzor Chaim Nishmatam Adonai hu nachalatam V'yanuchu b'shalom al mishkavam v'nomar Amen. Please join me on page 598 as we offer a mourner's Kaddish. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, ve'alma divrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala v'zman kariv v'imru Amen. Yehi shemei Rabbah mevarach la'alam u'li'almei almaya, v'yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shemei d'kudsha brichu. Leila min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata damiran be'alma v'imru Amen. Yehi shalama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. Zichronam livracha, may their memories always be for a blessing. Now remain standing and take a few moments for ourselves of silent reflection and prayer. Yeah, maybe that was a little too much. Join with me, page 627, Shalom Aleichem. Shalom Aleichem, Malachi Hasharet, Malachi Elyon. Mi melech malchei hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem leshalom, malachei hashalom, malachei elyon. Mihi melech malachei hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Barchuni leshalom, malachei hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Mihi melech malchei hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzedchem leshalom, malachei hashalom, malachei Elyon. Mihi melech malchei hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Be seated, and it's now my privilege again to ask Gail Gambino and Nicole Gruenstein to light and bless our Shabbat candles. And as we have been doing for some time, we set 2 sets of candles, one for us here in Sag Harbor, and those for the hostages who have not been able to light their candles for some time. We hope and pray each week that that will be less necessary. But in the meanwhile, we light these candles in hope and prayer. Page 120. Turn now to page 130 as we begin Kabbalat Shabbat together. 95th Psalm beginning at the very top of the page, again, page 130. Lechu neranina, lechu neranina, lechu neranina l'Adonai. Lechu neranina, lechu neranina, lechu neranina l'Adonai. Naria, Naria, letzori shenu, nekadma fanav betodam. Naria, Naria, letzori shenu, bizmihirot naria lo. Lechu neranina, lechu neranina, lechu neranina l'Adonai. Lechu neranina, lechu neranina, lechu neranina l'Adonai. Now on page 131, Shiru Ladonai, just towards the middle of the page. Shiru Ladonai, Shiru Shir Chadash, Shiru Ladonai, Kol Haaretz, Shiru Ladonai, Baruch Hu Shemo, Basru Meyom Leyom Yeshuato, Shiru Ladonai, Baruch Hu Shemo, Basru Meyom Leyom Yeshuato,
Shiru ladonai, shiru shir chadash, shiru ladonai, kol haaretz, shiru ladonai, baruch hu shemo, basru meyom leyom, yeshuato, shiru ladonai, baruch hu shemo, basru meyom leyom, yeshuato. Turn now to page 132, or Zarua, which is at the very bottom of the page. Or Zarua lahatzadik, uleishrei lev simcha. Or Zarua lahatzadik, uleishrei lev simcha. Simechu tzadikim b'Adonai, ve'hodu lezecher kodsho. Simechu tzadikim b'Adonai, ve'hodu lezecher kodsho. Turn now to page 134, at the very top of the page. Zamru ladonai bechinor, bechinor vekol zimra, bachatzotzrot vekol shofar. Hariu lifnei hamelech Adonai, Yiram hayamum lo'om, Tebel ve'yoshveva, Neharot yimcha uchaf yachad, Harim yiraneinu, Lifnei Adonai kiva, Lishmot haaretz, Yishmot temel metzedek, ve'amim mesharim, Yiram hayamum lo, tevel ve'yoshveva, neharot imcha uchaf yachad, Harim yiraneinu. We're now on page 135, the last Hebrew paragraph towards the middle of the page. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu lehakodsho. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu lehakodsho ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu, ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu lehar kodsho. We're now to the 29th Psalm on page 136. Mizmor leDavid, Avu l'Adonai b'nei Elim, Avu l'Adonai kavod va'oz, Avu l'Adonai kevod shemo, Ishtachavu l'Adonai behadrat kodesh, Kol Adonai al hamayim, el kavod hirim, Adonai al mayim rabim, Adonai al mayim rabim, Kol Adonai ba'koach, Kol Adonai behadar, Kol Adonai shover harazim, Vaishaber Adonai et arzei halvanon, וירקידם כמו עגל לבנון וסריון כמו בן רעמים כמו בן רעמים כל אדוני חוצב להבות אש כל אדוני יכיל מדבר יכיל אדוני מדבר קדש כל אדוני יכולל לעלות ויחשוף יערות ובכלו כולו מרכבות כולו מרכבות כולו מרכבות אדוני אבו ישב וישב אדוני מלך לעולם אדוני עוז לעמו ייתן אדוני יברך את עמו Shalom. Turn to Lachadodi now on page 138. We'll do the first, second, fifth, and ninth paragraphs. For the final paragraph, if you're with us in the room, we'll rise and face the doors that we walked through just before. Lechadodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabela 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 Shamor vezachor bedibur echad Ishmi'anu el hamiuchad Adonai echad u'shemo echad L'shemol tiferet ve'litila Lechadodi likrat kala Penei Shabbat nekabela Lechadodi likrat kala Penei Shabbat nekabela Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha Ki mekor haberacha Merosh mikedem nesucha Sof maaseh b'machshavat tchila Lechadodi likrat kala Penei Shabbat nekabela Lechadodi likrat kala Penei Shabbat nekabela Hitoreri Kiva ore kumi uri shir daberi Kevod Adonai alayich nigla Lechadodi likrat kala Penei Shabbat nekabela Lechadodi likrat kala Penei Shabbat nekabela Boi v'shalom ateret bala Gam besimcha ubetzola Toch emunei am segula Boi chala Lechadodi likrat kala Penei Shabbat nekabela Lechadodi likrat kala Penei Shabbat nekabela
Please be seated. We're now on page 140, Tzadik Katamar, just where the Hebrew indents in the middle of the page. Tzadik Katamar Yifrach Keres Balvanon Yizke Shetulim Beveit Adonai Bechatzrot Eloheinu Yafrichu Od Yenuvun Beseva Deshenim Verananim Iyu Lehagin Ki Ashar Adonai Tsuri Velo Avlata Bo. Now rise again in body or in spirit for the Chatzi Kaddish on page 144 and remain standing for the Baruch Hu on the next page. Yitkadal vehitkadash shemei Rabbah Ve'alma divrach irutei b'yamlich malchutei V'chayechon u'vyomechon u'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael Ba'gala ba'gala Ubizmahan kari veimeru. Amen. Yeheshme Rabba mevarach. La'alam li'al me'al maya. Yitbarach. Yitbarach v'yishtabach. V'yitvar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal. Shemei dekucha brichu. Leila min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata damiran v'halma v'yimeru. Amen. Baruchu et Adonai hamevorach. Baruch Adonai Haborah Leolam Vahem. Please be seated. We'll read together now on page 149 in English, towards the bottom of the page. This is an hour of change. Within it we stand uncertain, on the border of light. Shall we draw back or cross over? Where shall our hearts turn? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? This is the hour of change. Within it we stand quietly on the border of light. What lies before us? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? Umahavir yom umevi laila, umavdil ben yom uven laila, Adonai tzvaot shemo. Echai v'kayam tamid yimloch aleinu leolam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai amari v'aravim. We'll read together now on page 151, towards the top of the page in English. As you taught Torah to those whose names I bear, teach me Torah too. Its mystery beckons, yet I struggle with its truth. You meant Torah for me. Did you mean the struggle for me too? Don't let me struggle alone. Help me to understand, to be wise, to listen, to know. Lead me into the mystery. Yehem chayinu ve'orech yameinu, uvahem nege yomam v'layla, v'avatcha al tasir mimenu liolamim. Baruch atah Adonai ohev amo Yisrael. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu,
Adonai Echad. Please join me on page 154. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם להיות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם, אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים, אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת. We're now to the top of page 157. We'll read together in English and then move on to the next page quickly. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot. That wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands and marching together. Mechamocha, page 158. Ya bye bye bim 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 bam, ya bye bye bim bam. Ya bye bye bim 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 bam, ya bye bye bim bam, ya bye ba 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 bye, ya bye bye bim bam, ya bye ba 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 bye, ya bye bye bim bam. Mi chamocha vaylim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh, nor tehilot osefele. Nor tehilot osefele, ya bye bye bim 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 bam, ya bye bye bim bam, ya bye bye bim 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 bam, ya bye bye bim bam, ya bye ba 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 bye, ya bye bye bim bam, ya bye ba 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 bye, ya bye bye bim bam. Malachutecha ra'u vanecha. Bokeam lifnei Moshe u'Miriam ze'lianu ve'amru Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed. V'nemar kifad Adonai et Yaakov u'golo miad chazak mimenu baruch ata Adonai gal Yisrael. Let's read together in English on page 159. Sing the song of men and women joined in understanding and respect, a song of God's miracles, an earth protected and cherished, a gift for our children and the generations to come, the song of a land once ravished by war, now quiet and content, her soldiers home to leave no more, the song of a world redeemed, the song of peace. Ashkivenu is on the top of page 160. Ashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom vehamidenu shomreinu lechaim. Ashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom vehamidenu shomreinu lechaim. Ushmor tzeteinu, uvoeinu, lechaim u'shalom, me'ata ve'ad olam. Ashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu leshalom, ve'hamidenu, shomreinu lechaim. Blessed are you, Adonai, guardian of Israel. Shelter of peace is spread over us, over all your people Israel, and over Yerushalayim. Turn to Vishamar at the top of page 162. Veshamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. עיני ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, וביום השביעי שבת, שבת וינפל. Invite us now to rise in body or spirit as we begin the Amidah together on page 164. From that point on, we'll continue silently. As always, please go at your own pace, and when you're finished at the end, you may be seated. Adonai sepatai tiftachu pi ani tehilatecha. Adonai, open my lips, and help me declare your praise. Ose shalom bimroma, uyase shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel. Yase shalom, yase shalom. Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom. Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Turn now to page 371, our Mishaberach, our healing prayer for this evening. In a moment, I'll read our Mishaberach list, but of course, in our community tonight, we want to think of the families of Carmel Gat, Ori Danino, Eden Yerushalmi, Almag Sarusi, Alexander Lobanov, and of course, Hirsch Goldberg Polian. For all of their families, we pray for them through this unimaginable time. In addition to their names, to their families, in our community tonight, we're thinking of Madeline Engelfeld, Dan Brown, Andrew Adler, Leah Bat Avraham Basara, Adam Lubo, Rachel Bat Marsha, Sue Wartor, Abigail Blum, Betsy Tepper, Michael Klinghoffer, Amy and Warren Cass, Rivka Bat Rachel, Lorraine Danis, David Dowling, Sylvia Devora Bat Francis, Muriel Hirsch, Michelle Sawicki, Francis Kirschman, Shelley Newmark, Diane Axelrod, Gabriella Spicer, David Kyle Klotman, Lorraine Davis, Kim Birnbaum, Deborah Block Kroll, Sylvia Orn, Rachel Bat Ora, Josephine Getling, Lisa Leviton, Peretz Ben Shlomo, Israel Ben Yitzchak, Shira Bat Eti, and Roberta Kyle. In addition to those names that I just shared, if you're with us here in the room tonight and you'd like to add additional names, we'll start on this side of the room and work towards the back and then this. And if you have names to share, please just raise a hand.
Charlie Swag, Bear, Marilyn Goldstein. Joe Emanuel, Jackie Emanuel, John Gessler, Hubbard, Linda Lanigan, and Charles. Also Cosby family, Diane Schwartz, Shelley, Maureen Kenny, Mario, me, Rod, Lee, Judy, Brian, Judy Linton, Warren, Chi, Brooke, and Rick Gold. Warren,
First, we invite those watching at home to add the names of your loved ones as well. Join together in Mishaberach in the middle of page 371. Mishaberach Avotenu Mekor HaBracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Misheberach imotenu Mekor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. Now for our prayer for Israel in time of war. Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu, our God and God of our ancestors, you know that the Jewish people are one nation with one heart, and now that heart is broken. O healer of broken hearts, binder of their wounds, be with our brothers and sisters who have been taken captive and with the families of the victims. Watch over the hostages, break their bonds, and bring them out from darkness to light. Proclaim release to the captives, liberation to the imprisoned. Comfort the families, bring them under the shelter of your wings. Bring complete healing of body and spirit to all of the wounded. Bind up our wounds and grant us healing. Tzur Yisrael v'goalo, rock and redeemer of the people Israel. Bless the state of Israel, the initial manifestation of our redemption. Shield it with your care, spread over it your shelter of peace. Guide its leaders and advisors with your light and your truth. Grace them with your good counsel. Strengthen the hands of those who defend us. Crown their efforts with victory. Bless the land with peace, its inhabitants with lasting joy. Shomer Yisrael, guardian of Israel, strengthen and bless the defenders of Israel who stand guard on the land and the air and on the sea. May we see the promise of the psalmist realized. You turned my mourning into dancing, my sackcloth into robes of joy. God, protect, preserve, and restore peace and well-being to Israel, your people, and together we say, Amen. Shabbat Shalom. Hard to find something appropriate to teach in a night like this. There was a part of me that I woke up this morning and said, don't even attempt it. Don't even attempt it. Let the service we did at the beginning speak for itself, give some quiet reflection time. And trust me, it would have been the much easier route. And after a few weeks away, would have really been a much easier route. But it didn't sit with me. And as I've told you many times over the years, when we reach these challenging moments, my first response, the response of our people traditionally, is go back to our heritage, go back to our teaching, go back to our Torah. As it happens, this week's Parsha is one of the most important in our entire Torah for this moment, I think, in particular. Parshat Shoftim really is focused on a lot of things. It covers a lot of different elements of who we are as a people, but a lot of it is principally concerned with leadership. Principally concerned with what is the nature of our people's mechanism for upholding concepts as amorphous as justice, as righteousness, as fairness, how to maintain concepts of peace and even reasonable behaviors during times of war. All of these things are contained within this Torah portion alone. And I will remind us all, in case we forget, a very significant section that warns us about the danger of empowering individuals with too much power. In this case, concerned about kings, but ultimately speaking throughout time, to be worried about what happens when individuals are in a position of power and what they do with it, and how one determines a separation between personal needs, personal desires, personal wants, and those of the people that are represented by that leader. And so a lot of the opening part of the Parsha is dealing with the judicial system, with the creation, again, of a system of courts, of defining the distinction of, again, who can be king eventually and what they are not allowed to do or to possess, the rules that affect the priests themselves, again, the apex at this point of leadership being religious leadership, and ultimately of warnings of prophecy and of concern about the nature of prophecy and how, on the one hand, it can be a vision or a gift into a future or a means by which to avoid a catastrophe, and on the other hand, a great danger in listening to those who claim to know the future, claim to predict its outcome. It also establishes the importance of witnesses, of what it means in our tradition to be a witness to something, what sacred moments require witnesses, require a certain understanding that an individual alone can't be trusted and that there is a need for others to corroborate or to refute. And as I said, even the rules of war towards the end of the Parsha, determining that even when one is about to engage in battle, that one is meant to seek peace first and only then to engage in that battle. But the part that really stuck me in a way that I just have never really thought about before, and I will tell you at the outset, it is not describing in the Torah what we are experiencing now or what happened in the last week and a half, but it had a number of things that jumped out to me as significant and powerful and relevant. And this has to deal with what almost inevitably happens in any society, what to do when a body is found and there is no clear indication of who took the life. What happens when we find a person whose life was taken without any control, and yet we don't have a person to try, a person to ultimately pay for those terrible acts. So I want to read with you just a little bit of what it says. This is the chapter 21 of the book of Deuteronomy. It says, and I'll point out that a lot of the book of Deuteronomy contains the word ki in Hebrew. Ki oftentimes is translated as because. In these circumstances, it's an if. It's a conditional statement, the beginning of a conditional statement. If certain things happen, then this is what one is meant to do. So if in the land that your God Adonai is assigning to you to possess, someone slain is found lying in the open, the identity of the slayer not being known, your elders and magistrates shall go out and measure the distances from the corpse to the nearby towns. The elders of the town nearest to the corpse shall then take a heifer which has never been worked, which has never pulled a yoke, and the elders of that town shall bring the heifer down to an ever-flowing wadi, which is not tilled or sown. And there in the wadi they shall break the heifer's neck. The priests, the sons of Levi, shall come forward, for your God Adonai has chosen them for divine service and to pronounce blessing in the name of Adonai. And every lawsuit and case of assault is subject to their rule. Then all the elders of the town nearest to the corpse shall wash their hands over the heifer whose neck was broken in the wadi. And they shall make this declaration: Our hands did not shed this blood, nor did our eyes see it done. Absolve, Adonai, your people Israel, whom you redeemed, and do not let guilt for the blood of the innocent remain among your people Israel. And they will be absolved of blood guilt. Thus, you will remove from your midst guilt for the blood of the innocent, for you will be doing what is right in the sight of Adonai. This is actually a remarkably complicated passage. The Hebrew itself particularly challenging. It is translated many different ways, and oftentimes those translations are indications of who is doing the translating, how they see this text. What's being described, as I said, is something that actually is necessary. What does one do in a situation in which there isn't an obvious person to hold accountable? The danger of not having a mechanism for that is what the Torah actually is very concerned about, which is that it can lead to further bloodshed, further attempts at revenge, oftentimes blindly searching in every direction for someone to blame, someone to take our anger and our animus out upon. And so they create this ritual, one that, of course, is completely distant to us in a modern context, right? A sacrifice of a very particular nature. And that sacrifice is meant to stand in for the person who is not found, the murderer. The attempt here is to try to create some sense of closure for something that inherently has no closure. And ultimately, it's the leaders of these towns that become involved in it. And it's not just the religious leadership. It is the, in effect, political leadership, the ones that are responsible for each of these towns and hamlets. They first start out, every single one of them involved, to figure out who is closest and most responsible. And then they come out to the field and they ultimately do this whole act. And the end result of it, we're told, is, thus you will remove from your midst guilt for the blood of the innocent, for you will be doing what is right in the sight of Adonai. I can't comprehend how this helps in that situation. And I certainly can't comprehend how it would help us in this exact moment. What struck me in this text was a natural response to a situation in which there is no, again, obvious person to hang our feelings upon, which is in effect, and I looked this up to see whether this is the origin. According to most sources, it is not. But the idea of washing their hands over the blood of this animal that is taking the place of the person that ultimately has done the murder, right? That image of sort of saying in the end, this is all we can do, and we have no responsibility beyond that. We didn't shed the blood. We didn't see it shed. This is the best that we can come up with, and we wash our hands of it. Even if that is not in the Torah's mindset what is taking place here, it was hard not to read that text and get a feeling like, after the tragedies of the last week, of the tragedies of the last year, a growing sense of irresponsibility. Right? A growing sense to me of people who absolutely should be at the front and center, even if they are not the ones who pulled triggers or who cut throats or who took lives. Myriads of people, layers of organizations and countries, not just any one, who are looking and pointing the finger at each other. It's their fault, their responsibility. We couldn't have done more. We don't know more. Or we couldn't have done much. What Gail read not so long ago is the thing that has stuck in my heart all week. Okay, when a mother says, we felt like we were this close, that there was a deal that was this close, we could taste it. And the next day to hear the horrible truth of it. None of us in this room, and I'm sure most of us around the world, we're not in the negotiating rooms. We don't know what is discussed. We only get dribs and drabs of what is coming out of those conversations. But the lack of urgency in the tone in which
People, again, who are our leaders, who we look to for guidance, especially in these moments, who continue to obfuscate, who continue to give us half-truths at best. These things are eating at me, as I'm sure it is eating at all of us. In this case, even though we know who is responsible, we don't have the means by which to take the kind of reciprocity, the kind of punishment that any of us would feel sated by. And I worry that in time, that won't change. And we don't have a ritual to expiate, there shouldn't be a ritual to expiate responsibility for what has taken place. Every one of us, whether, again, we're in a position of power of change or we're not, we cannot look sideways at a situation like this. And we can't allow our leaders to do that either. The strength of these parents, the strength of siblings, of friends, the people who every single day have given up living their life only for the sake of saving those who are still in captivity. Even the rabbis who say that political goals in the end, even military goals, are secondary to returning the hostages alive. Our tradition that tells us over and over and over again that redeeming hostages is more important than almost any other mitzvah. And yet, what do we hear? Something like this, much more than anything else. Right? An attempt to try to find closure where there isn't closure. An attempt to find some way to push the responsibility into other places when, in fact, responsibility is everywhere. This section of the Torah is here specifically because it reminds us that when we are in positions of power, when we are leaders, when we have choices to make, and hard choices they may be, that there's no easy out for a reason. Right? There's no way in which to put the responsibility solely on some other entity and go back home. The story of this week, unfortunately and sadly, I worry is not going to be the last story unless something shifts dramatically. And I think we all have to come to some understanding at some point or another that if we truly want the return of these friends, these children, these mothers and fathers and grandparents, that it's not going to come easily and it's not going to come without giving up a lot. But we have to be the ones to ask of our leadership, to demand of our leadership that they have to take that seriously, more seriously than anything else, even if it means the end of their political career, even if it means the end of a party, if it means the end of a government, if it means the end of any number of other things. This text screams at us that we can't sit idly by. We can't think that the blood of an innocent person taken by someone else isn't still somehow, some way, partially our responsibility too. I think, unfortunately, a lot of these sections of the Torah right now are the ones that everyone is kind of putting to the side because they're inconvenient, deeply inconvenient truths. But I, for one, I can't keep watching and thinking that the situation will change or to have hope that it will change if the language we continue to use is one in which we are looking for the fastest way to pass responsibility to someone else. The killers ultimately are the ones responsible. There's no question about that. Hamas is ultimately responsible for the deaths of these 6, hundreds, thousands others, and scarily the potential of more. But there is also a need on the part of our people, our leadership, and in particular in Israel, to do something beyond what is being done right now, to show a passion, to show a drive, to show something that indicates that these aren't just words on a page, that they truly mean something, and that when our people are held captive, that we are going to do literally anything and everything to get them home. Okay, when you hear the parents themselves, the mother say that there's a feeling of failure on their part, that they didn't achieve what they had hoped to achieve, that's all of us. It has to be all of us. We hear in her words what's in our hearts. We feel this personally, even if we may not even know the people. But in the end, in the end, if we're ever going to build a world in which we are doing right by God, it has to be a world in which the innocent are not taken for nothing, in which murder is not left to lie in the field unchecked. But in the end, as I said, it is also unacceptable to allow ourselves to be led on a path in which, I can only speak for myself, I see only more loss and more pain and more grief. I realize that in any conversation around Israel generally or the war specifically, that we come from a lot of different places, a lot of different perspectives, perhaps a lot of different places politically here and home and over there. But in the end, if we really believe in this idea of Am Yisrael, if we say Am Yisrael Chai, that's all of us. Okay, that phrase, Kol Yisrael Arivim Zel Hazeh, it's not an accidental phrase. We are responsible to each other. We are responsible to those parents. We are responsible to those people that are still being held in cages underground. Okay, we are responsible to all of them. And in the end, if we do nothing or we do less than we ought to, then we cannot be absolved of the guilt. We cannot be absolved of standing idly by while they suffer. And I know for myself, I struggle with that deeply. But I find a sense of courage, a sense of hopefulness, even in the saddest moments, from people far stronger than I, people like Rachel, who you heard from tonight, from Gail and Nicole, people who have said that even while their greatest gift and prize is taken from them, that they will continue to work to save the others. If you want to find some definition of Judaism that we can actually all agree on, that's it. It's embodied in people like Rachel, and it's embodied in these families. It's embodied in the thousands, tens of thousands that continue to march, that continue to cry out, that continue to work towards freeing the remainder. And I think only in that way, by getting as many of them home as we can we even hope to honor words as beautifully articulated as Rachel's and read earlier by Gail and Nicole, and as hopeful and ultimately as inspiring as the words of Torah in front of us. With that, I wish you all Shabbat Shalom. Invite us now to please rise as we turn to page 586 at the bottom of the page, Aleinu L'Shabech. Aleinu L'Shabech Ladon HaKol Latet Gedula Liotzer Breshit Shelo Asanu Kegoye Ha'aratzot Velo Samanu Kemishpechot Adama Shelo Sam Chelkenu Kahem Vegor Aleinu Kechol Hamonaham Vanachnu Korim Umishtachavim Umodim Lifnei Melech Malchei Hamlachim Hakadosh Baruch Hu. Page 591. V'nemar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad u'shemo echad. Ask those in mourning, those observing yahrzeit, to please remain standing. Everyone else may be seated at this time. We think first in our community of those who've passed in recent months: David Amanoff, Judith Emanuel, Deborah Fogarty, Richard Gambino, Lita Goldsmith, Rita Hertzfeld, Jesse Hirsch, Barbara Kushner, Robert Lykoff, Samuel Moskowitz, James Pappas, Danielle Lisa Rigg, Janice Tucker Samble, Harlan Spitz, Charles Spiropoulos, Susan Wolfson, Ronald Seth Tempowski, Fania Verrett, Alan Stephen Weinstein, and Ronald Weller. We add to our list, of course, sadly, the names Ori Danino, Alexander Lobanov, Almog Sarusi, Hirsch Goldberg Polin, Carmel Gott, and Eden Yerushalmi.
We also mark the yard sites that occurred during the last week in our community for Zipa Abdikin, Francis Arowich, Joseph Auerbach, Doris Blasenheim, Rose Blutt, Ruth Brown, Frank Decker, Goldie Feinstein, Henry Friedlander, Irving Ginsberg, William Hesse, Ruth Kelmanson, Jack Kurtzman, Jonathan Klyer, Michael Littman, Max Matlis, Elaine Matlick, Sanford Matloff, Sarah Meyer, Martin Ohl, Alfred Pomeroy, Seki Rice, Sheldon Rudansky, Eric Segelstein, Laura Segelstein, Sidney Segelstein, George Shainswit, Hilda Siegel, Morris Tanzer, Fanny Weinstein, Maxwell Whitelaw, and Betsy Wolf. In addition to those names that I just shared, is anyone saying Kaddish for anyone we didn't mention? I'll invite the mourners to join with me, and tonight as we are mourning as part of Klal Yisrael, I invite us all to rise in body or spirit as we join together in the Mourner's Kaddish, page 598. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, ve'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael, b'agalau v'zman kari v'imru amen. Yehi shemei Rabbah mevarach la'alam li'amei almaya. V'yit barach, v'yit shtabach, v'yit pa'ar, v'yit romam, v'yit naseh, v'yit hadar, v'yit alev, v'yit halal, shemei dekudsha brichu. Leila min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, damiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehi shalama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, Hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Zichronam livracha, may every one of their memories be for a blessing. Please be seated, and Shabbat Shalom to everyone. And just a few quick announcements. The first, to really thank you is again my gratitude to my friends, to my colleagues, to just these wonderful people of our Israel Response Committee, Rabbi Alan Levin, Gail Gambino, Nicole Gruenstein, Betsy Tepper, who's watching at home, to our leadership, to Ron and to Alan, to our board members, to this whole community, but especially for tonight in helping pull together what I hope was a meaningful service before we began. What, as I said, was on a very short time frame with a very tall order. And I really appreciate, again, how remarkable it was to be able to plan and to share this experience with all of you. I don't think I could have made it through tonight without you. So thank you. A few other important announcements. First, of course, is to join us as soon as we're done with services for our Oneg Shabbat next door. Understandably, a little bit less joyful in the room tonight, and that's okay. Okay, you don't have to force yourself to be something that you're not, but you do still have to eat. So it's very important before you leave, get something, give somebody a hug. You know, if you don't know somebody, introduce yourself. These are the little things that actually add up to quite a lot. Also want to remind everyone that Shabbat services begin tomorrow at 10 o'clock. And as it is the first Shabbat of the month, I believe, where it's possible, this is going to be our Women's Torah Commentary, Torah Study. And this month will be facilitated by Judy Greenwald. So we hope that you'll join us. That's all tomorrow. Again, service at 10, Torah Study at 12 o'clock. If I'm not mistaken, weather still looks good, Bonnie, for tomorrow? Yeah, okay, thumbs up. I think a whole summer of the Hamish Havdalah getting wonderful weather. So if anybody did not join, doesn't know what I'm talking about, Bonnie is right there in the back. I'm sure she'd be happy to give you directions to Hamish Havdalah tomorrow night to end Shabbat in, again, a beautiful way. A reminder also, and I think this is very important, as we were talking about planning, you know, with things like memorial services, with vigils, it always feels like we want to do something. That's part of how we deal with, you know, grief and losses, wanting to be active. And I just want to draw attention to, again, through the hard work of our Israel Response Committee, to tremendous improvements to our Israel page on our website. It has a lot of different resources, in particular around the hostages and what one can do on a practical level. I really, again, and amongst other things, really to spend some time on that webpage if you haven't yet. If you're not a web person, not an internet person, we'll help you old school style, I'm sure, as well, to point you in that direction. But I think that is a really important part of this to realize. And, you know, for me, obviously, as a rabbi, I don't take prayer lightly. I treat it quite seriously. And there's something that's been going on since the war began, Sundays, 9:30 in the morning on Zoom, which is a gathering of a lay-led service, one in which a particular focus is on connecting to Israel and feeling connected to Israel. All are welcome, once or always. 9:30 is again on Zoom on Sunday morning. One other, this bereavement group already happened, right? So there's nothing this okay. So this Thursday, 7 o'clock, both here live at the temple and online. We're very honored to welcome back David Gruenstein, who's going to help lead us in our next science and religion conversation. This time focused on one of our mutually favorite people of all time, Maimonides, although David is much more the expert than I am. He'll deny it, but I will tell you the truth. And in this case, we're going to talk about prophecy and where prophecy falls within the conversation around that which is, let's put it in quotation marks, scientific, and that in which exists in the world of the metaphysical. And David, thank you for teaching this, because I certainly couldn't, but I will be excited to learn with you and alongside you, and hope very much that you will join us. These have been some of the best conversations, best programs that we have had in the temple in years. So if you've never been to one, this is definitely the one to start again this Thursday, 7 o'clock, either live here in person or online. I know, and I've been out of the loop for a couple of weeks, there's a small series of holidays coming up in a few weeks that I'm sure you're all familiar with. And there's a lot to be coming at you if it hasn't already in the mail and all those good things. So I really hope that we will see you for all the holidays, if not for some of the holidays. And I want to thank everybody in advance for what I know will be a particularly challenging and yet at the same time desperately needed opportunity for all of us, again, as a community to celebrate, to push ourselves a little bit, and ultimately speaking to be proudly the Jewish people that we are, and to be Temple Adas Israel the way that we love and we care about. I'm sure there are other announcements, but that's what I have in front of me for now. So, Ron, did I miss anything of major import? Okay. Ellen, thank you. Rosh Chodesh?
The Rosh Chodesh reading for this coming Sunday at 2 o'clock here at the temple. It's our annual preparation for the holiday.
Excellent. Thank you. So if anyone didn't hear online, Sunday, 2 o'clock, rescheduled Women's Rosh Chodesh group in preparation in the month of Elul for the high holidays. I do okay? All right, good. So with that, I felt it was appropriate, and we felt as a group appropriate, that before we do Kiddush and Motzi, that we'll end our service with Hatikva. So I'll ask you to rise in body or spirit as we sing it together in hope, ultimately in hope. Tikva is on page 678. 678, just at the very bottom of the page. Kol hod baleheva penima nefesh Yehudi homia ulefateh mizrach Kadima, Ailet Zion, Sophia, Od lo abna tikvatenu, Atikva bat shnot alpayim, liotam chofshi, Be'artzenu, Eretz Zion, Yerushalayim. Liotam chofshim, Be'artzenu, Eretz Zion, Yerushalayim. Kiddush is on page 123. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavahanu v'shabahat kodsho b'ahava u'vratzon inchilanu zikaron l'maaseh v'reishit ki hu yom techila lemikrae kodesh Zecher letziat Mitzrayim, ki v'hanu v'acharta, ve'otanu kidashta, mikol hamim, ve'shabat kodshecha, ve'ahava u'vratzon inchaltanu, Baruch atah Adonai, mekadesh, Shabbat. Amen. Chaim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. Shabbat shalom. Please come next door. At least we have something later to look forward to.
That was ridiculous. I tried to be at the risk, like, well, you succeeded.
Not I learned more from you in last week than I did at school. Don't think that you know, that's very low. So you'll just tell me in terms of what better, but you know, but our power.
I don't know that I'm going to use the,
So if
I'm not going to use it.
so then if that's the case, then maybe you are good. You know, if that.
I don't think last time I had it.
Right, no, I was saying we need to, but it's also like if you wanted anything, it was just old school hands, right? We could print anything extra, but talk about anything extra. But it's not anything. It's not anything.
That's not. You know, that's there are two links.
It could be really cool. And that can also work online too. That's no problem. You know, but like, yeah, but it's like a lot easier than having a giant deal.
There's the honest.
Oh, yeah. Yes, yes, yes. Because I think it really is a much.
There's that.
Yeah.